This time I'll entertain a motion to come out of closed session back to open session.
I so move.
All right, have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, are there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll start the vote with Mr. Early,
Yes.
Mr. Collins.
Yes.
Mr. Hill.
Yes.
Mr. McCraw.
Yes.
Mr. Dixon.
Yes.
And I vote yes. At this time, whereas the Carroll County Board of Supervisors convened a closed session this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote, and on the motion to close the meeting in accordance with the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, whereas Section 2.2-3711 A1, A8, and A29 of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by the Board of Supervisors that such closed session was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the Carroll County Board of Supervisors hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempt from open meeting requirements under the Virginia Freedom of Information Act were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed session to which the certification applies, and only such business matters as were identified in the motion by which this closed session was conveyed were heard, discussed, or considered in the meeting to which this certification applies. I'll start the certification with Mr. Collins,
I so certify.
Mr. Early,
I so certify.
Mr. Hill,
I so certify.
Mr. McCraw,
I so certify.
Mr. Dixon,
I so certify.
and I so certify. And I will apologize to the citizens for a few minutes getting out of closed session, and appreciate your patience on that. And we'll start with the agenda, and I'll ask Mr. Collins if he'd lead us in invocation and pledge.
Lord, we thank you for this opportunity to be here tonight dealing with the business of the county. We just pray that you give us guidance and leadership and direction. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first on the agenda is a citizen recognition. I would ask if Jasmine and Brittany would come up forward, please. And we will discuss a little bit. I want, and these young ladies, last month's Board of Supervisors meeting, we brought in our EMS and first responders and our deputies that were on the scene at Skyview Church that saved a man's life. And later did I find out, and I have apologized to them feverishly that they were left out of that. They seen it, that we'd recognized the EMS on social media. But, we wanted to undo a wrong that we felt, and we want to bring these ladies in. And I'd let Jasmine speak a little bit about the actions that they took, but, these ladies are heroes, in my opinion, and deserve to be recognized. And the certificate of recognition proudly presented to, and we got one for Jasmine and one for Brittany for their heroic effort and life-saving skills on May 20th, 2023. And I'll ask Jasmine if she will speak a little bit on what transpired.
So we were at my brother's graduation at Skyview Baptist Church, and my great uncle had come and said that a man had come to him saying that his friend had passed out in the graveyard. So we went out there, didn't have a pulse, so we did CPR for about 20 minutes before EMS arrived. Was very upset because, we both work in the hospital, and it's just a lot different because in the hospital you have everything you need. There didn't have anything, but we're happy to say that he's just doing pretty good as he can right now. So.
And like I spoke with Jasmine this morning and thanked them for their service, and you as well. You were there and y'all worked hard to save this man's life, and we all take our EMS, or in this case citizens, what y'all do is heroic to us, and saving a man's life. And but one of the things that meant the most to me, speaking with Jasmine this morning, is they followed up with the hospital, and that meant a lot. That not only you wanted to not only see how your actions had helped to save this man's life, but you followed up, and that meant a lot. So I want to thank you. And I want to thank you.
Tracy, can we get a picture?
Yes.
Somebody,
Be good.
I know Crystal's not here,
Yeah.
but I can do my best.
Mike can be a photographer. We'll just get you to stand up here in
So
front.
you get to see.
Yeah.
behind you.
Yeah, so we can get to seal the county.
Will you hide by me?
Mhm.
I'll take you. I'm gonna back up in case they hit this. I'm about to get my thumb out of the way. Thank you.
And I think they deserve a large round of applause. Thank y'all for coming.
I don't know of anything more, takes away more energy than to do CPR for that length of time.
And it was raining as well. They didn't
I didn't
throw
know
in
about
that, but it was pouring the rain, so. All right, next on the agenda is Tri-County Health Clinic recognition, and I'll turn the floor over to Mr. Early.
I believe Jim Worth has a PowerPoint presentation he'd like to present. I'm hoping that it has been loaded. Has no one taken? I can send it to Jason. Crystal's not here right now. Okay, could we
Okay.
delay this then?
Yes, we
I'll
can-
send it to you.
Do we need a motion, or can I amend the agenda to?
I think the,
Move.
a motion would be appropriate to.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to move the Tri-Area Health Clinic recognition to, before new business. May I have a motion for that?
So moved.
All right, have a motion to have a second? All right, are there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll start the vote with Mr. Collins. Yes. Mr. Hill.
Yes.
Mr. Dixon.
Yes.
Mr. Early.
Yes.
Mr. McCraw.
Yes.
And I vote yes. So, next on the agenda, interjects.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to present tonight. My name is Eliana Guinness, and I am a project developer at Energix Renewables. And I'm here to give an overview of solar in Virginia and hopefully provide all of you with valuable information about solar energy. When I complete my presentation, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have and open it up for discussion. And with me tonight, I have my colleague Dominica Sink, who's the Senior Director of Project Development, and Scott Foster, who is our legal counsel from Gentry Lock, and they'll also be here to speak and answer any questions you may have as well. So, is there? Perfect. So the presentation will be split up into three main sections. First, just general solar energy in Virginia. Then we'll get into a bit of Solar 101, so giving some information about the technology we use, the panels. And then I will talk about our proposed River Trail Solar project in Carroll County. And we'll wrap up by addressing some common misconceptions and then open it up for discussion. So just a little bit about who we are. Energix Renewables is headquartered in Arlington, Virginia, with our engineering headquarters in Roanoke. We have 9 operational projects across the Commonwealth and 6 more that will be under construction this year. We have quite an extensive development pipeline of over 6 gigawatts, and this is in Virginia, Kentucky, Pennsylvania, Arizona, and West Virginia. We are a long-term partner, so we site projects, develop projects, construct them, own and operate them throughout their entire lifetime. And one very important aspect of our business model is our commitment to strengthening the American economy. And we do this by sourcing most of our equipment in the US, and this is namely through our strategic partnership with First Solar, who is a US panel manufacturer. This map here shows where our operational projects are in the Commonwealth. As you can see, we have quite an extensive presence across the state. The closest one to Carroll County is in Wythe, but we're really all over and continuing to develop. So I want to just take a step back and situate us in the context of Virginia's energy landscape. So all sources of electricity, from coal to nuclear to natural gas and renewable energy like solar, is important for our utility grid. Solar is just one piece of the puzzle. We really hope to promote grid diversification to make our utility infrastructure as resilient as possible. And so we're, of course, happy to see solar share as part of this energy landscape. However, we do believe that all of the above energy approach for the sake of a diverse portfolio of sources in Virginia. And so you can see solar is just 5.6% of Virginia's energy landscape at the moment. There are many reasons why solar is important in Virginia, so I'll just touch upon a few. The first is that solar is a key component of grid diversification, as shown in the slide before. Having different sources of energy lessens dependency on any one resource, and it optimizes the grid in terms of both efficiency and reliability. Solar is also very cost competitive, and it continues to become even more cost competitive. According to the Energy Information Administration, solar is the cheapest form of energy right now. Solar in Virginia also helps promote domestic energy production. By localizing production, it reduces our reliance on foreign energy resources and supports the U.S. economy. And lastly, solar is a low impact form of energy generation. This is both in terms of impact on the land because it's a non-permanent land use, and it has a low impact on communities near projects because they're very passive developments, which I'll get into more as the presentation continues. So narrowing down a little bit, there are also a lot of benefits that solar has to the localities in which the projects are located. As Energix, we are the long-term owner and operator of our sites, and so we really strive to be a good neighbor and make a lasting impact on the communities in which our projects are located. So solar brings increased tax revenue to counties, and we've seen solar bringing anywhere from 10 times to 70 times more revenue than the current land use that our solar projects are sited on. And in addition to bringing in tax revenue, solar projects don't place any strain on existing county infrastructure, so they don't utilize sewer or water lines. There's no extra strain on the school system, no increase in traffic after construction. We also hire locally as much as possible and use local contractors, so we're bringing well-paying construction jobs, and even for those who we can't hire locally, we have contractors stay in the county in which the projects are, so they stimulate the local hospitality sector. And also going back to it being a low impact development, there's no permanent buildings on the site, and there's no permanent workers that are constantly on the site after the short construction period. There are only people coming on site once in a while to make sure that the project for maintenance and landscaping. As with any type of development, there are challenges to solar development. The first is that during construction, there is temporary land disturbance, and this causes some noise and traffic. Project construction time, it ranges, but typically takes about 6 to 9 months for construction. So during that time, there is, construction disturbances, but other than that, is very minimal, any minimal traffic and noise on site. We're also competing with other land uses such as residential developments and industrial developments. And lastly, there is a lot of solar misinformation, and so it's really important that to provide access to reliable information about solar and be available to the community to answer questions. So while the technology is pretty basic, I'm just going to go back to solar basics and kind of electricity basics. So solar panels are mounted on the ground, and when sunlight hits the solar panels, it starts a flow of electrons into the photovoltaic cell. The solar panels produce direct current. Our electricity grid uses alternating current, so when direct current flows from the panels into what's called an inverter, which are on site, and the inverter turns that electricity into alternating current. The alternating current flows through wires to transformers, which increases the voltage of the electricity. And then this electricity travels across transmission or distribution systems and ultimately gets to homes and businesses. So you can kind of see the transition of all the different steps in the diagram on the screen. So while the technology is straightforward, choosing where to locate a solar project involves several important considerations. The first thing that we look at is the existing electrical infrastructure. So we look at the access to a substation nearby a project, the features of that existing substation, including the available capacity, and if there are any infrastructure upgrades that are necessary in order to support that project. And then we also look at the specific project potential. So looking at availability of land, the topographical features of that land, and any environmental characteristics such as wetlands on site. It's also really important that the landowners we find landowners that are willing to lease their land and supportive of the project. And then we also try to cite projects that have existing vegetation, at least surrounding the project, so that we can screen the project from adjacent residences and roadways. So there are many requirements and permits to obtain prior to a solar project becoming operational. The first is local land use approvals that must be obtained if there is zoning in a county. And then there is a permitting process through the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality called Permit by Rule. This typically takes about 6 months, and this is the crux of the environmental permitting. Step 3 is any additional approvals, so land disturbance permits, site plan approval, building permits. This takes 9 to 10 months. That's kind of steps 3 and 4 are simultaneous. And then once a project becomes operational, it takes about 6 to 12 months to close the land disturbance permit. The next few slides, I'm just going to talk about the different components of a solar project. The first is the panels, which I'll get into a few more details in the next few slides. The panels are supported on racking that are either they track the movement of the sun very slightly, or they're at a fixed angle. And these racking are supported by poles that are installed about 4 to 6 feet into the ground. There are also inverters on site, and as mentioned before, inverters convert direct current to alternating current, which is what the electricity grid uses. We establish ground cover underneath the panels as early as possible in the construction process. So under our projects, we have grasses, and it looks similar to a meadow. And the last important component is the point of interconnection. This is where the project connects to the utility grid. And so for a distribution size project, which is the size of a project that we're proposing in Carroll County, the point of interconnection looks like these utility poles as you see on the screen. These are the same utility poles that are in front of your house, and there would be about 5 of them that look like that. So Energix solely uses First Solar panels. They're the chosen technology for nearly half of all utility scale projects in the U.S. First Solar is a trusted American panel manufacturer with over 2 decades of experience. They're headquartered in Arizona, and they have their U.S. manufacturing operations in Ohio. These panels have been studied for many years by researchers from over 50 researchers around the world, and including a study done close by Virginia Tech. This study specifically looked at panel safety both under normal operating conditions and foreseeable accidents such as breakage, extreme weather, and they've concluded that the panels pose little to no risk under both normal operating conditions and foreseeable accidents. And these panels, there are over 250 million deployed worldwide, so they are very mature technology that have been around for over 2 decades. Through our partnership with First Solar, we have access to the only established and operational solar panel recycling facility in the United States. And once a project is decommissioned, over 90% of the components of First Solar panels can be recycled and reused. And even though these panels are recycled and reused, they are categorized as non-hazardous waste by the Toxic Characteristic Leaching Procedure Test, which is the gold standard of federal leaching analysis to determine if a sample is hazardous waste. We have a video, but I don't think we're able to play it, but we're happy to share a video of the recycling process with you after the meeting tonight. Oh, unless, do we have, is it possible to play the video or? Okay. I think if you just click the, should work. So at the end of a project's useful life, which is typically 35 to 45 years, solar projects are decommissioned. And this includes the removal of all above and below ground equipment and reseeding the land. And so returning the land to its pre-existing conditions. And once the project is decommissioned, the area will be suitable for other types of development, including its pre-solar uses. It's a very high value, non-permanent land use, and it does not impact or limit the future use of the land, such as agriculture. We also post a surety bond with the counties in which we do projects to ensure effective and timely decommissioning. The next few slides go over erosion and sediment control and stormwater management practices that we abide by. So prior to design, all wetlands and streams are mapped so that they can be avoided and protected. And prior to construction, an extensive erosion and sediment control and stormwater management plan will be designed and submitted to the county and the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality. There are several layers of county and state design review, plan approval, and construction inspections that guide the development and construction of the project. So when rain passes through the gaps between panels and the spaces between the arrays, it infiltrates into the permanent, deep-rooted, long-term vegetative ground cover that is under the panels. And these measures that I will show in the next few slides, they're utilized to detain runoff and prevent erosion on solar sites, but they're also used for all types of development projects, and they're installed as the first step in construction. So these are all photos from some of our operational projects. The first photo shows riprap that's installed that slows the velocity of stormwater flow to prevent erosion where there's downslope arrays. The photo on the right shows a stormwater conveyance ditch that's graded in line with matting to combat erosion and allow for vegetative stabilization to be established. The photo on the left shows Fleximat that's added to further stabilize a ditch that feeds into a stormwater basin. And then the photo on the bottom right is showing a ditch that's created in line with matting and installed with check dams or silt socks. And this is another photo showing what the vegetation that looks like under panels that's established to protect from erosion. So now I'm going to talk specifically about our proposed River Trail Solar Project. This is located northwest of the intersection of Creekview Drive and Hebron Road. It has a capacity of 20 megawatts, which is enough to power approximately 3,000 homes. And this is located on approximately 169 acres of private property. The project will generate significant tax revenue to Carroll County. In its first year alone, the project will contribute roughly $141,000 in revenue, and this is compared to just under $6,000 under its existing use. Over its approximate 35-year lifetime, River Trail Solar will contribute an estimated $3.75 million in additional tax revenue to Carroll County, which is 18 times more what it would be under its current land use. This is showing a rough timeline of where we are with the project and when it will become operational. So currently we are going through step 3, the additional approvals box, going through land disturbance permit and site plan approval and building permit, which is all something that the county takes part in. And we anticipate the commercial operation date of this project to be in 2024. And closing the land disturbance permit in late 2024, early 2025. The next few slides, just to wrap it up, I'm going to go over some common myths that we hear about solar and try to shed some light on how these are, to give you more information about these myths. So the first is concerns about safety of solar panels, and I know I touched about this a few slides before, but again, the panels are made using safe, stable, and insoluble compounds. They've been extensively studied and consistently have confirmed the safety of these panels, and it's not a new technology. Solar panels have been in the field for decades. There's another misconception that solar energy is expensive. It is reliable and inexpensive, and projects, especially utility scale projects, use economies of scale to ensure it's a cost competitive energy source. And it is right now the cheapest form of energy, according to a report from the Energy Information Administration that comes out every year. Something else we hear often is, will living near a solar project impact the value of my property? There has been numerous research in Virginia and North Carolina and in states across the United States that have shown that there's no negative impact on surrounding property values. The characteristics that typically correlate to downward trends in property value include increase in noise, odor, traffic, and impacts on viewshed. So solar projects don't have any noise, odor, or increased traffic once construction is finished, and then to mitigate any impacts on viewshed, there's often vegetation planted or preserved surrounding the perimeter of the project that ensures there's no impact on adjacent properties or adjacent public right-of-ways. Another misconception or question we get is, won't the panels end up in our landfill? And as we just saw in the video, First Solar offers a modular recycling program to its customers, and all the components can be recycled, especially the semiconductor, which has a very long life of being able to be recycled 41 times over. Something else that we sometimes hear is concerns about electromagnetic interference. The only component of a solar project that has the potential to emit EMI is the inverter, and the amount that inverters emit is comparable to everyday household appliances, and research has found that once you're farther, 150 feet or further from the inverter, it is equivalent to background levels, and inverters are on the interior of a site. So outside the project boundaries, there's no there's no concerns about electromagnetic interference. And then lastly, will the project increase stormwater runoff? So unlike typical developments, underneath the panels is soil that is pervious. And so that allows water to be absorbed. So there's no increased runoff from a solar project. And we also go through a lot of permitting and must abide by strict regulations from the Department of Environmental Quality to ensure water quality on our projects. So with that, I just want to thank you for your time. And before we open it up to questions, I'm going to have Scott Foster come up for a moment to talk about the siting agreement legislation, which is what we're proposing, and we've been working with the county. So thank you.
Good evening, Scott Foster with Gentry Locke. I serve as land use counsel to Interjex, working with them all across the state on developing solar energy storage projects. Carroll is special and one of a few jurisdictions we're working in that does not currently have zoning. So what I want to talk to you tonight about is how we're going to help you effectuate zoning type control over the River Trail project without actually having zoning. So I'll bore you with some background details on the siting agreement, how it came to be, and then tie it into what we're going to do here. In 2020, our firm drafted legislation in consultation with several localities in Eastern Virginia that were seeing large-scale utility solar projects, largely based out of a necessity that both developers and localities realized. So solar developers were entering into voluntary agreements with localities to kind of shape the form of development of solar and to provide additional economic benefits for the land use. Those voluntary agreements were enforceable as a contract, but there was a better model out there. So we put together the siting agreement legislation. So it's a contract between the developer and the local government that, in a county with zoning, would wrap around that traditional conditional or special use permit. You can have special mitigation terms, financial compensation to the locality, and the key benefit of the financial compensation of the locality is that it takes you out of that traditional proffer context, and you have additional flexibility with how those funds can be applied, and I'll talk a bit about that in a second. But the key for you all is this mitigation of impact. So since that legislation has been passed, proposing and negotiating a solar siting agreement has just become a matter of course in the development of these projects. And we for those projects that qualify for a siting agreement, those that are 5 megawatts and above, almost every one we do now has a siting agreement. But as far as mitigation of the impacts, so we can design this agreement, and I've sent a draft to your county administration to incorporate conditional use permit like development terms that will run with the land, be binding on the applicant and the landowner. It's a document that's recorded in the land records that will guide the development and operation of the project from construction through decommissioning. Because we have this vehicle to get those terms in the mix, we're going to have a substantive discussion and negotiation about the things you all are concerned about, and the things we need to put in this agreement. So in the draft agreement today, we've already got terms in there regarding decommissioning, which is what everybody's worried about. The things we'll submit to you to show how we're going to do it, what the plan is, the estimated cost, the terms for recalculation of that cost periodically to ensure that the cost of actual decommissioning keeps up with inflation and cost of materials, et cetera, and the terms for placing the financial security that you all could call upon in the event the developer were not to perform decommissioning. So those terms are going to be baked into this agreement to ensure that there's funds available to the locality in the event that the developer doesn't decommission the project. The other thing that we can put in here is terms that bind them to develop the project that they have presented to you all. So essentially bind them to say, okay, here's our site plan. This is the project we're going to build based on this design. That gives you all some control over how the project looks and functions, and implicit in that are things like setbacks. The other piece of the siting agreement, and this is the biggest piece for most localities with zoning, is the financial component. The money that's routed through the siting agreement has really almost unlimited flexibility. It's anything in your capital improvement plan, anything in your capital budget. The beauty of the money that flows through this agreement is it doesn't have to pass that traditional nexus test. So if we were going to provide a locality with additional funding, we would need to find some nexus between the project and the additional funding we were going to provide. So early on, we did a lot of radio communications for EMS. We bought fire trucks, things that there could be some reasonable relation between those funds and some demand generated by the project. In the siting agreement context, that's gone. So if you have a school need that's in your capital improvement plan, the money that comes through the siting agreement could be applied to that. That was not the case before. Eliana used some initial numbers for this project. You know, it's only 20 megawatts, which as projects go is small to medium, if you will. Under the default tax for all solar projects in Virginia is machinery and tools. So in the numbers she was using are the machinery and tools number. There's an alternate tax as well. It's really a capacity tax called revenue share, which you all would have to adopt by ordinance. It's $1,400 per megawatt indexed to inflation, indexed to increase by 10% every 5 years beginning in 2026. So for a project of this size, though, machinery and tools tax is a better deal. Which is why she went with that number. And another beauty of the siting agreement is we can get into that back and forth, share those numbers, compare the two revenue models. As I've shared with your staff on projects that are better under revenue share can be more attractive because solar revenue share is not a factor in the calculation of your local composite index for the local obligation for school funding. Machinery and tools tax is. So that's a factor to consider that we're going to work out over the coming months. This agreement is adopted very much in the same fashion that you all would adopt anything else that required a public hearing. There's public notice, goes in the paper, runs for 2 weeks. Have the public hearing, there's public comment. You all entertain the agreement and adopt it. Once it's put on the agenda, it's a public document, and the discussions between us and county and staff and you all, those are all public as well. So the other feature of the siting agreement pursuant to the legislation is when a locality enters into this agreement, it deems the project in substantial accord with the comprehensive plan. And that's important because under 15.2.2232, these facilities are required to be reviewed by the locality for conformity with the comprehensive plan. The traditional venue of that is with Planning Commission. But when we propose these agreements and the question is tied to this agreement and is put in front of you all, you are, if you so choose, making that determination yourself in entering into this agreement. So it satisfies that legal requirement as well. I really like this document because it sets up a great conversation between localities and developers to figure out how to do projects right. And it's a nice forum in which to solve difficult and sometimes not land use decisions that work well for everybody. I'm happy to answer any questions you all have. This is, the proposal I sent over. It's a living document. We're going to go back and forth and figure out how to make it work for everybody, and I'm looking forward to you all incorporating your feedback into that as well.
Anybody have any questions?
I do.
All right. Mr. Early?
I think you've already heard it from our attorney. Your choice of having this public hearing in Galax is why?
So Dominica Sink and I have talked about this afternoon, and she's prepared to explain that. That's a bit of a DEQ decision.
Okay, well, that's not where it's going to be, is it?
So thank you for that. I'll address that The public hearing is heard for a different permit. It's not related to anything going on with the county. It's dictated by DEQ. It's for the PBR permit. Wherever the public hearing for siting agreement is heard, that's up to the county to let us know where you all would like us to hold that.
Okay. So is that what you'd mentioned to us previously, Steve, that you had discussed with them?
Yeah, I think that Scott and I might want to have a follow-up conversation on that. I'd like to understand the mechanics of that a little more as far as DEQ.
So in the traditional land use context, most localities require you to have a community meeting. That's separate and distinct from what DEQ requires you to do for PBR. So if it's a question of having the public meeting for the locality in the right locality, then that's remediable.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough, you know. One in Carroll County shouldn't be in gay lights. You know.
Some of these questions may be best answered by Eliana. Zoning. You said we're special because we don't have zoning. How big a factor was that in choosing Carroll County?
So as Eliana showed, we have operational projects in 9 localities. We have zoning or development projects in about 12 different counties. Some of them have zoning, some of them don't. So it wasn't a factor. The major factor was working with utility to identify where we can produce the power and inject it onto the grid. We have projects in zoned and non-zoned counties.
So zoning had nothing to do with it?
No, sir.
And I'll tell you, informally, the folks who do this land use work find that permitting solar in areas without zoning, because you still have to go through this 2232 review, can be more difficult because counties without zoning maybe feel like they're caught flat-footed with a new land use that they want to exercise some control over. So it can actually be more difficult, in my opinion, to permit projects in counties without zoning, which is why this agreement comes in so handy, so that we can effectuate zoning-type controls without actually having zoning.
Another question on the construction. You said the post would be 4 to 6 feet in the ground. Is there any concrete? Is there a concrete footer with that, or is it just driven in the ground?
No, sir. There's no concrete. It's just piles being driven into the
And
ground.
decommissioning will take the entire post?
Yes, and then depending on, as Scott mentioned, we try to be flexible. Some localities we work in, they require us to remove the entire post. Some prefer that if during the removal it's broken in the ground and it breaks off less than 3 feet, then it remains in the ground. So that's up to you all.
Well, okay. You said that there's a recycling, the place you send the recycling is in the United States. Where is it?
Pearisburg, Ohio.
And where are the panels manufactured?
Pearisburg, Ohio.
They're built in Pearisburg.
Yes,
They're
sir.
not from China.
No. So if I could just expand a little bit on that. So the company that we procure the panels from, First Solar, they're publicly traded on the New York Stock Exchange. They're a global company, but they're headquartered in the U.S., so headquarters in Arizona. Pearisburg, Ohio is their main manufacturing facility and recycling. They're opening another facility in Alabama. They're a global company, so they send their panels to Europe, to India for other projects. So they do have facilities in Malaysia and Vietnam. But those are the other production facilities not in the U.S. And 90% of their components comes from America, so steel, semiconductor. And the 10% that doesn't, it does not come from China.
That's good to hear. Useful life, I think you said was 35 to 40 years.
Yes, sir.
Do you ever go back in and instead of decommissioning, replace the panels and continue the project?
Yes, that's a really good question. So sometimes we do anticipate that just a retooling might be needed. So it really depends on the project. The main limiting factor is really the contract with the landowner. So this lease is for 35 years, and that's really what dictates the duration of the project.
And does the county have any oversight of renewal of the lease?
No, sir.
So it's up to the landowner?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Are you going to develop the whole 130, 159 acres, or just a section of it?
So it's not going to be the entire parcel. The parcel is over 200 acres. We're only going to develop about 169, and so that was really done to have avoidance or big setbacks from any residential properties or the state park that's there. So we have really large setbacks to make sure that we're not near any homes. And the same with the road. No part of the project is directly by the road.
How long have you been working on this project? I've been aware of this for a long time.
So we approached the landowner about 2 years ago, I think. And so we've been working in the meantime with the utility to go through their different checks and different steps that they have in their process. Then we work with DEQ because that requires a full analysis of the cultural resources, wetlands, threatened and endangered species. So it's a lot of environmental due diligence and due diligence with the utility to make sure that it's a viable project.
Any other further questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
If I might,
Yes, sir.
one of the concerns that I've heard voiced at public meetings, both this body and at the Planning Commission, is the impact on agriculture of these types of developments. And so maybe you could address that. I don't know if this is a facility that would be suitable for ongoing agricultural use as well, or once it's decommissioned, can that go back to agriculture? If you could address that, I think that.
Absolutely. So for the operation of the solar project, the landowner didn't want to engage in what that's called agrovoltaics. So this is only going to have solar panels. But after decommissioning, when and if it happens, at that point, it's suitable for pretty much right away. So there's Virginia Tech study and a professor kind of ongoing study of these facilities and soils. He's a soil expert. So his conclusion has been that immediately after decommissioning, because essentially you don't farm it for 35 years, there's deeply rooted vegetation and grasses that let the topsoil grow. So at the end of the project, when it's decommissioned, it will be suitable for hay production or grazing. And for other types of farming, any row crops, it may require additional soil amendments.
Anything else, Mr. Durham?
Are there any other stakeholders or other parties that we would be dealing with, or is this entirely going to be Intergex in this process?
It's only going to be Energix, so we're fairly unique in the market. Most of the companies in this space are Dominion, Appalachian, or developers. So developers develop the project, get permits, and then flip it. So they sell it to a utility or an independent power producer, which is essentially what Energix is. We're an independent power producer. We're actually competition to Dominion or Appalachian.
You'll be selling the power into the grid, and then Appalachian, I guess in our area, will be distributing that power.
Yes, sir.
Buying it from you and distributing it.
Yes, sir.
And Intergex is one of 2 or 3 clients that we have that are vertically integrated, as you said. You know, permit the project, design the project, permit the project, build and operate. Most everybody else is what you call a merchant developer. They'll come here, design the project, get the permit, and they're turning around and selling it to a big utility like Dominion or Algonquin.
Is it possible you could share the presentation with our planning commission? It would be good if they got to see the presentation. It'd be good.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Hill, are you asking that they attend the next planning commission meeting, or just provide the PowerPoint?
That would be up to them. They could do it either way, you know, but it'd be nice if the planning commission could view the presentation. They probably could. Not too many questions on there. That's up to y'all. Yeah, 20th.
Yeah, July 20th.
Yeah, 6 o'clock. That's when we meet right here.
Here. Any further questions?
I have no further questions.
Board? Thank y'all for coming.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is citizens' time. Nobody signed up for citizens' time? I moved that to right before new business.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Next, approval of minutes. I entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So move.
Have a motion to have a second.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll start the vote. Mr. McCraw,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Mr. Early,
Yes.
Mr. Hill,
Yes.
Mr. Dixon,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented.
Make a motion, we approve the consent calendar as presented.
All right, have a motion to have a second.
Second.
All right, are there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll start the vote. Mr. Dixon,
Yes.
Mr. McCraw,
Yes.
Mr. Hill,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Mr. Early,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes. Next on the agenda is the invoices. Entertain a motion to approve invoices for 6/16/23, 6/28/23, and 7/10/2023. A, B, and C, or we can break them out, whichever the board so desires.
I make a motion, we approve the invoices A, B, and C.
Okay, I have a motion to approve A, B, and C as presented. Have a second?
Second.
All right, are there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll start the vote. Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Mr. Early?
Yes.
Mr. McCraw?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. Dixon?
Yes.
I vote yes. And now, after the revised agenda, I'll open the floor to Mr. Early for a presentation to Tri-Area Health Clinic.
Well, I first would like to apologize for the delay. The brains of this organization is not here tonight. Her mother is very ill. So thank you in advance for your understanding. At this time, I'd like to introduce Mr. Jim Worth, the CEO of Tri-Area Community Health Clinic. He has a nice PowerPoint presentation, and then I'll make a presentation to him.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me time to speak tonight, and thank you, Supervisor Early, for the invitation. My name is Jim Worth. I'm the CEO of Tri-Area Community Health. I came in almost exactly 4 years ago in June of 2023, and that'll become relevant here in just 1 minute. I'd like to take a few minutes just to highlight the history of Tri-Area here in Carroll County. We actually started in 1979 under the name the Laurel Fork Health Commission with some funds from the Public Health Service and community donations. In 1982, some of you may know Dr. Baum, who was recruited as a family physician and became medical director, served in that capacity for a little while. In February of 1982, our clinic opened in the basement of Torrey Creek Baptist Church. And then later that fall, we moved to 14168 Danville Pike, which is where our corporate office is now. In 1984, Dr. Glenn Tate joined the staff and in 89 became the medical director. The clinic now is named after him. If you've been to that facility, you'll see over the door that it's the Dr. Glenn Tate Medical Clinic. In 1984, we opened a dental office in the lower level of our clinic and offered those services through 2008. However, now we contract with Dr. Montagna here in Hillsville to provide dental care for our sliding scale patients. In 1986, we added a pharmacy. At first, it was under private ownership, but then we bought it and opened our own pharmacy. In 99, planning for our expansion of staff and facilities in Laurel Fork, and 3 years later in 2002, we had our then new 12,500 square foot health facility and pharmacy, which is just down the road at 14558. And then in 2003, that site opened, so it's been there about 20 years in that building. And then in 2009, we took our current name, Tri-Area Community Health, and so that's the name that we're using at this point. Just a little bit now moving to who we are and what we do. So our mission is to improve the quality of life of our patients in our communities by providing affordable, high-quality, comprehensive care and services. We're technically a community health center, or according to Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, we're a federally qualified health center, which means that by regulation, we must see all patients regardless of their ability to pay, which means that we have a sliding scale and a hardship policy, so we don't turn anybody away. We get money from the federal government, and that enables us to do the sliding scale. We also have several grants from the Virginia Healthcare Foundation. Whenever we open a new site, we ask them for some support, and they've been very generous. And then the bulk of our money comes from patient revenue. As is the case in most rural areas, the majority of our patients are Medicare, 35%. If you're a health center in an urban area, it might be 5%. But for us, 35% are Medicare. Another 30% or so are Medicaid, private insurance, 30%, and then self-pay is 5%. And then we also have pharmacy revenue. Our pharmacy is open to our patients and to the community. Overall, as an organization, last calendar year, we saw 10,544 patients for almost 37,000 encounters. And at this point, we have about 150 employees across all sites. I'll narrow in on Carroll County here in a second, but just to give you a sense of our footprint, we cover 5 counties and 1 city. So here again, we started here in Carroll County in '79, opened our second clinic in Franklin County in 2007. Next clinic was in Floyd County in 2008. And then you'll see there's a big gap there between 2008 and our next clinic in Grant or Troutdale in Grayson County. I came in 2019. One of the reasons they brought me in was to expand, provide more services and more sites. And so been pretty active even in the midst of COVID doing that, with opening in Grayson County, a site down in Patrick County, and then we just opened a site over in Freeze. And this fall we'll be opening in collaboration with the Galax City Public Schools, depending on how soon we can get staff on site. That'll open this fall. Here in Laurel Fork, I mentioned that we have about 150 staff overall across all of our sites. About half of them are here in Carroll County, between our clinic and pharmacy and our corporate site. Here in Carroll County specifically, in 2022, we saw 3,210 patients with over 10,000 visits. This year already, the first half of the year, we saw 2,300 patients with over 5,000 visits. And then in terms of the sliding scale, I mentioned that's where we don't turn anybody away, and over 400 patients in 2022, and now even more than that in 2023, we're already at 360. That's probably because of the Medicaid unwinding that's happening. In terms of prescriptions, we had almost 50,000 prescriptions in 2022. We're at about 25,000 so far in 2023. We also offer a medication assistance program, which is similar to our sliding scale, where we try and provide medication to people so they don't have to choose between prescriptions and food. And here, just in Carroll County, in 2022, we had 74 patients make 393 requests for almost $1 million in free medication. And so far in 2023, we've got 61 patients with 217 requests for almost $500,000. I'm very excited that Congress decided to grant us $1.2 million to expand our clinic and pharmacy. So later this year, we'll put out a RFP for 2,800 square foot expansion of the clinic, and then some renovation of existing rooms, and then as well as a 780-foot expansion and then some renovation of the pharmacy. And like I said, the RFP should go out later this year, and then construction will be in mid-2024. The next last thing I want to mention is why I'm here in front of you today, which is our strategic plan. This was adopted back in November of 2022. And the first part, when we talked to our staff about what's most important to you, they said our involvement with the community is the most important thing to us. And so the first thing on our strategic plan is community involvement in collaboration with local governments and agencies, employers, and schools. We also the next thing is our access pillar, and this is one of the reasons I was brought in, is to increase access. And so we're supposed to be, as part of the strategic plan, expanding our current services and adding new services and adding new sites. And I'll come back to that one here in just 1 minute. And then the last one is people pillar. As I mentioned, we have 150 employees. 76 are here in this county. And part of our strategic plan is to offer competitive pay and benefits that assist employees in meeting their needs and the needs of loved ones. We do really well in recruiting and retaining staff because we have good benefits, and we try and pay people to an appropriate and fair wage for their training and education and experience. And so now, why I'm here today. I was talking with Supervisor early about some of the work that we've been doing over in Grayson County. You saw that we opened 2 new sites in Grayson County just in the last year and a half. And so what we're looking at trying to do is explore options and opportunities to expand sites and services. I'm not sure how to get rid of that, but we're looking for ideas for places here in Carroll County where there's high need. One of the reasons that we're in Freeze is, according to all the statistics, Freeze is the highest need area in Grayson County. Perfect for us to be there. Also, being in Galax schools is perfect to us to be able to reach a lot of children who don't have insurance and may not even have Medicaid. So I'm looking for opportunities here in Carroll County to expand with smaller sites, single provider sites, 4 or 5 staff members, It's a lot lower maintenance for us, and we're able to be in smaller communities for that. We also have been expanding our virtual care options with telehealth and looking at using remote patient monitoring. Some of you may have wearables, trying to use wearables. And so in terms of our service lines here, again, school-based sites, we're looking at doing some employer-based care, as well as we have a robust behavioral health program. About 20% of our appointments are behavioral health focused. And then again, we have our pharmacy, and so we're looking at resources and opportunities to expand our pharmacy with remote delivery so that we can set up mini pharmacies in our sites as well. So the reason that I'm here tonight, thanks to Supervisor Early, is to say that we really wanted to move in this direction in terms of trying to establish some partnerships and relationships and find some new opportunities for expansion and helping people in need. So thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Before I make the presentation, does anyone have any questions?
No, I think a facility in Duxbury would be very nice.
Make a note of that.
Dr. Tate, he's always was my primary physician, and then y'all built that down at Rocky Mountain. My daughter went to Ferrum, so yeah, I've helped a lot of the block work.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Appreciate
Thank you.
Boy, there's some wonderful things going on in Laurel Fork, just on the edge of Carroll County. The services y'all provide are greatly needed and greatly appreciated. And I look forward to continuing to work with you and find other opportunities for you. I think Sylvatus area might be one. We mentioned that when we had lunch together about a month or so ago. So, Jim, if you'll come forward. Mike, could you take a picture?
Absolutely.
I'd like to present this certificate of recognition proudly presented to Tri-Area Community Health Clinic for your dedication of service to the citizens of Carroll County. It's signed by both myself as the Laurel Fork Supervisor and the Chairman of the Board of Supervisors, Tracy Moore.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good seeing you. Let's have lunch.
All right. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, before we move on to new business, Mr. Collins, maybe in August, would you be willing to bring in a business to recognize? We'll work down this way toward the end of the year then. Next on the agenda is the chiller replacement project. We have already approved that project. We just need to make a motion to delegate Mike to negotiate the contract for it.
So moved.
All right, have a motion to have a second.
Second.
Are there any discussion?
Just would like to make sure Mike adds an emergency service clause in that contract for them to make sure that they respond in a timely manner if we have an issue with the chiller.
Okay. Do we need to amend that motion, Mr. Durbin, or is it okay if he just made that recommendation?
I think that the motion gives Mike the ability to negotiate.
And that
so
just being-
that's just a comment, I think, that gives guidance for those negotiations. So
Okay.
that's a long way of saying no.
Okay.
I don't think you need to amend it.
All right. I'll start the voting. Are there any other comments? All right. Hearing none, I'll start the vote. Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. Early?
Yes.
Mr. McCraw?
Yes.
Mr. Dixon?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Next on the agenda under new business, the Thompson and Litton EMS Building Design Project. Same thing, we have approved this project and we just need to have a motion to delegate Mike to negotiate and sign these contracts.
So move.
All right. Have a
Second.
motion to have a second.
Second.
Are there any discussion? All right, hearing none, I'll start with Mr. McCraw,
Yes.
Mr. Hill,
Yes.
Mr. Collins.
Yes.
Mr. Early,
Yes.
Mr. Dixon,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Under old business, the secure road plan, we've already approved that, but we need to approve the resolutions. I have a motion to approve the resolutions as presented.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
All right, have a motion to have a second.
Second.
All right, are there any discussion? All right, hearing none, I'll start the vote. Mr. Early,
Yes.
Mr. Hill,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Mr. McCraw,
Yes.
Mr. Dixon,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Next on the agenda is committee appointments. I'll open the floor if anybody has any committee appointments that they want to make a motion. I think the only one that we have is the EDA. All right. Does the board want to table it for another month, or?
I'll make a motion, we table it for another month.
All right. Have a motion to table it to the August meeting. Have a second?
Second.
All right. Are there any discussion? All right. Hearing none, I'll start the vote. Mr. Early?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. McCraw?
Yes.
Mr. Dixon?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Next, board member comments. Let's start with myself tonight. I don't have much. I just want to thank staff for all they do, and one of the things was going to see if Mr. Collins would bring in a business to recognize next month, and thank everybody for all they do. And I guess, Mr. Watson, I was just curious if we had a date when we'd possibly be open the splash pad.
Well, as of today.
Just get me something close.
Today?
Today?
No. They finished, I haven't went over and looked, but they're supposed to have finished up the sidewalks. We had the sidewalks poured. The grading company is going to come out, and if they haven't already, begin the grading of where the playground is, and possibly do training of staff at the end of this week. So once we can get it cleaned up enough so that we can allow access, then sometime after the end of this week.
Okay.
So we're pushing hard.
Okay.
You see caution tape and a soft opening, then you'll know what happened.
Right. Can we possibly at the end of this week look at where we're at on it, and hopefully maybe by next Wednesday's in the Carroll News have an opening date? That would be
We're
10
going to
days.
try. We will definitely try.
Okay. I guess last I have is, I know last year, the board, we fed the employees, cooked out, and we all cooked. Y'all want to maybe try to do that this year? August, September?
September won't be as hot.
Okay. Yeah, we might get a date in September that, on a Friday, that we
I agree with you on that.
grill for them, all the employees of the county. So with that, I'll move on to Mr. McCraw.
I just like to thank staff, and I just want everybody to remember Crystal and her family as they're facing challenging times. I'd like to entertain a motion, maybe if we could, Mr. Chair, to get staff to put out an RFP for lighting the ball field at the high school, the baseball field at the high school.
Okay.
Just get a RFP out and get some proposals in on it so we can kind of see where it's at.
Okay.
I'll make that motion.
He made the motion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
make-
I'll second it.
All right. I have a second. Are there any discussion? All right.
It's kind of sad that we got it for girls softball, but you don't have it for boys baseball.
That's, yeah.
So,
We got it for football.
all right.
Mr. Chairman, normally when we go through this process, we work off state contract. There's only one or two people that can do this type of work. So
Right.
we can get a quote off a state contract
Okay,
and bring you back a pretty firm number.
Okay.
that'd be good.
All right. Any other questions, comments? All right. Hearing none, I'll start the vote. Mr. Early,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Mr. Hill,
Yes.
Mr. McCraw,
Yes,
Mr. Dixon,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Are there-
and that's all I've got. Thank you.
Mr. Early?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've mentioned it a couple times. Could we also look at pickleball courts in the county, either at the rec department or other locations, perhaps the old Woodlawn School? Maybe get some estimates on what it would cost to have pickleball courts available to the public. That is the fastest growing sport in the United States. I mean, some people are taking old shopping malls that are no longer in use and putting pickleball courts in there. So maybe some indoor space too that's not being used, we could perhaps do that.
Is that a motion?
I'll make that a motion.
For RFP to get us some numbers back.
Yeah, just
Have a
RFP or estimates.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, are there any
Chairman.
discussion?
Can we include a basketball? I'd like to see a basketball court at the rec center and a pickleball court. Can we include a
Yeah, I could
out,
do both.
outdoor basketball court?
Yep.
Okay, maybe an RFP.
We have received some quotes so far.
Okay.
We've quoted it out, and looked
Okay.
at it. We might be able to fall underneath the requirement for an RFP by getting 3 bids.
Okay,
But if you'd like, I can get together those quotes and send them to you with the values.
okay.
I'll amend my motion to include the outdoor basketball.
Okay,
My second.
okay.
And just for information, I can lay out a pickleball court in about 20 minutes.
Okay.
I played it all last weekend with my kids, and I'm not any good at it.
So you want to redo your motion then?
What, for me to do it?
For you?
That's quite all right.
All right. So we have a motion added to add RFP to see what a basketball court would cost as well to rec department. All right. Are there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll start the vote. Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Mr. Early?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. Dixon?
Yes.
Mr. McCall?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Mr.
Uh,
Early?
One other thing, you know, it's always the weak link in any organization and throughout organizations, and that's communication. Currently, the Board of Supervisors meet on the same day and time as the Hillsville Town Council. I would like to change our meeting date to deconflict with them so that perhaps we could go to some of their meetings and they may be able to come to some of ours. So I'd like to make a motion that we change our meeting date to the first Monday of each month at the same time,
Okay.
6 p.m.
Is that effective
Effective in September.
September?
Would that work?
Does that give enough time for advertising for the rest of the calendar throughout the year? Okay. All right, so I have a motion.
What about the PSA? We'll have to,
That works good.
We'll have to do that next month.
Holiday on.
they give us that,
Yeah,
okay.
we'll have to change it.
Yeah.
So,
That works good. So,
okay,
It does?
so,
yep.
Okay. The 4th is, wait a minute now. September, the first Monday is Labor Day.
Labor Day.
Yeah.
So that might not be a good time to start.
Well, you're saying on Monday, though,
Yeah, that's,
but you're saying move it to the first Monday.
Yeah, but the first Monday in September is Labor Day.
well, let's just start it in October then.
All right, starting in October.
Okay, so I have a motion to keep our meeting date the same, the August and September meetings, and October the 2nd will be our first Monday meeting, correct? Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, a motion and a second?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
If you would like, can I have staff come put an entire calendar to the rest of the year so that we can go ahead and line those out?
Yeah.
And they can look at those dates as well.
Yeah, that'd be good. And if it does conflict like September, you know, we can move it to the next day, Tuesday or whatnot, or the second Monday. So, all right. Anything else, Mr. Early? Oh, I've still
No,
got-
just, you know, keep Crystal and her family in our prayers. We wish her the best. We miss her not being here, and we hope the best for her mother. Thank you to staff. As always, y'all do a fantastic job. And thank you again, Jim, for sharing with us what y'all do. It's very important. That's all I have.
And I did I was still in discussion to start the vote. I have a
Oh,
motion second.
I thought you said, okay.
Yeah, that's okay. We got that on record as well. I'll start the vote with Mr. Early.
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. McCall?
Yes.
Mr. Dixon?
Yes.
And I vote yes. All right. Mr. Collins?
The only thing I have, Mr. Chairman, is just, you know, a lot of my citizens are concerned about water and roads, and, I mean, it's just those things that seem to be never ending. I just look forward to finding better ways to work with VDOT and others to, especially for the roads, and finding ways we can get more water to more people.
Seems like it's more and more you hear it. Is that all, Mr. Collins?
Yeah, that's all.
Mr. Hill?
Yeah, I just want to keep Crystal in our prayers.
Absolutely.
She's going through tough times. I want to thank everybody for attending and the presentations we got tonight. It was very informative.
Mr. Dix?
Just want to thank staff and everyone for coming. Interjects and Tri Health, I appreciate you all coming and talking to us about some things going on and a lot of things going on in the county that you don't know about, how long you've been in business, and some new businesses or new possibilities coming. So we do appreciate you coming, talking to us. Definitely keep Crystal in your prayers. She's missed a lot, and hopefully everything goes well there. It's exciting to see us moving forward to some stuff on recreation. Like to see us get that sooner than later, and hopefully splash pad will open up by the second week of the third week of July.
Okay.
That's all I've got.
All right. And good thing about being chairman, I can have one more time. I do want to thank Justin and Jason and Michelle and them for all they've done to help us out while Crystal's not been here. I want to thank them for that. And I'll turn it over to county administrator comments.
I don't have any.
All right. County attorney comments.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have anything from a legal perspective.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So move.
Have a motion. Before we do that, get a second. The August 1st radio meeting that will have the majority of the board there at it, does this meeting need to continue over to that, or will we be fine with the bins that it's advertised?
We can make sure it's advertised and follow over.
I think we'll need to at least post notices either way, so.
Okay, so we can go ahead and close the meeting then. So, all right. Have a motion, have a second?
Second.
All right. Are there any discussion? All right. Hearing none, I'll start the vote. Mr. Early?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. McCrone?
Yes.
Mr. Dixon?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Thank you.